When I was 12 I engaged in bestiality and now I don't know what to do. So I am currently a newly 15-year-old, sometime around December 2019 I was newly 12, I engaged in bestiality. I'm a child who had no internet restrictions and discovered that one girl who always bragged about how good it felt to be with animals intimately. I then found the porn and quickly became addicted. After each session I didn't know how I felt. I just know I felt bad about not feeling bad most of the time. We had small female dogs at the time. I attempted things with them once or twice, although I will admit at the time it felt crude and gross, still thinking about it. It never worked anyway, and then my dog had puppies. I loved them completely platonically, and the most fucked up thing I'd ever done happened when they were 8 weeks old. I was curious and had the idea to do what the girl in the video did, and I engaged with it orally. I regretted it so much after, and my mom gave me an option to keep a puppy, but even then I understood that I wasn't safe to be around any animal with my temptations still there and did not deserve a pet, so we homed the puppies and eventually had to rehome our dog, sadly, luckily, due to my mom becoming unwell. I fought with the addiction and I'm recovering at the moment. Even seeing an animal in a sexual manner online makes me repulsed now, and I'm living with the shame every day. I was too scared to tell my mom about how I was fearing she'd shun me or tell everyone, so I've never received any professional help, and honestly I was terrified of posting this because I already understand how horrible and dirty of a person I am, but I needed to get this off my chest. Recently I got very intoxicated and almost told my mom about me being into bestiality. I'm not anymore, but at the time I thought it was the best way to describe it, and it's made me realize just how fucked up I am. So I'm here asking strangers on Reddit for advice. I just don't know what to do. I'm into zoophilia/bestiality and don't know how to control my urges. My boyfriend knows my account and I don't want him to see this, so I had to make a throwaway. I'm 18, and when I did hit 18 last year I thought, yes, we can finally do it. When I became legal, I went up to my boyfriend and begged him to take my virginity. After some sex I slept at his place. It felt amazing, but when I got home I couldn't stop craving cock again. I was in the middle of playing with myself when my dog slid in the doggy door. I was on facing the other way watching porn and didn't realize he'd come in. I always felt dirty and disgusting if I was naked in front of my pets, but I forgot to block the doggy door this time. So, my German Shepherd, who was huge, went behind me and started to lick my vagina. I turned around shocked and didn't know what to think. I was about to kick him outside the door, but I tried to pick him up to take him out of my room, but my hand happened to touch his naughty bits. When I tried to reposition myself I realized it was way bigger than my boyfriend's. I was so horny I just gave in to my urge. Everything in your mind right now is exactly what happened. I'm ashamed to say that me and my dog did it multiple times afterwards. I sometimes break down because I'm more into a dog ramming me than my own boyfriend. I don't know what to do or how to stop myself sometimes. I'm trying to stop, but it's like an addiction, but I know it's no excuse for my actions. I just needed to say it. I know many people will probably shame me in the comments, and to that I say please. I'm a horrible person and I deserve it. I'm not looking for sympathy and everyone should hate me for this. I committed acts of bestiality. To start off with, where my troubles began would be at 6 or 7 years old when my friend and I discovered internet pornography on his father's computer. I really had no ability to process what I was viewing and the effects it would have on me later in life. I went on living a few more years not viewing any sort of pornography, but the images I saw that day on his laptop I would never forget. There was another incident which I have a very spotty recount on, which happened when I was around 5 or 6, when an older girl, 14 to 15, kept hugging me and I believe intentionally touched my penis with her hand. I remember feeling slightly uncomfortable during the incident. Perhaps this could have had some weird long-term effects on me? For more backstory, I felt pretty isolated while growing up. My parents never introduced me to my large extended family for reasons I didn't know. On top of this, I felt like I never really had anyone to talk to, and my parents were very against any therapy or counseling. So I pretty much kept all my feelings to myself. They also taught me nothing about sex, never once a mention of it or the changes I would go through during puberty. It became very hard for me when I entered a deep suicidal depression during my early middle school years. During this time I also had nearly unlimited access to the internet, which I used to watch porn for 2 to 3 hours each night. For at least a year I watched basic heterosexual porn, but I fell into the trap of porn escalation. I've read that many other men have experienced similar escalation. Each new genre I'd watch would eventually become boring to me, and I felt a need to watch more and more shocking content. This, combined with ridiculously strong sexual urges, lead me all the way to watching bestiality porn. I went through episodes where I was so horny that it felt like an outside source was controlling me and I couldn't do anything about it. During these episodes, I'd often experiment with anything I had around me: fruit, stuffed animals, couch cushions, and eventually, and this is extremely painful for me to admit, I experimented with a dog. The incidents with the dog occurred 5 or 6 times and started with me encouraging the dog to lick my genitals. However, there were several times that I made oral contact with the dog's genitals for 3 to 5 seconds. I don't believe I caused the dog any pain or discomfort, and I sincerely hope that I didn't. His behavior didn't seem to change at all after it happened. Now I am 18 years old. And I had completely forgot about my disgusting actions until 2 weeks ago. I cannot express how much I regret doing them. I entirely understand how wrong bestiality is, since a dog cannot give consent, which was something I never considered when I was younger, not to mention how simply disgusting and revolting it is. I also entirely understand the implications of sexual actions and how much responsibility is carried with them. I now possess a strong respect for animals and their dignity. But at least it seems I didn't cause any harm to the dog before I changed my ways. I pretty much entirely quit porn, and it has been at least 4 years since I've made any inappropriate contact with a dog. I have none of these perversions that I suffered during the years when I went through puberty. I have no sexual thoughts aside from heterosexual ones. I have had a very healthy relationship with my girlfriend, who I care about more than anything, which has lasted for 9 months now. And I have a bright career ahead of me. But after being reminded of the disgusting things I did with my dog, the guilt has been seriously eating away at me. Will I ever be able to put this behind me and live on with a normal life? Am I doing my loved ones an injustice by continuing to be around them and not telling them the truth of my perverted past? I think it would really destroy my parents if they found out about it, especially since my 2 other siblings haven't turned out very successful so far. I think my girlfriend would also be devastated. Is this something I need to tell her? I feel zero self-worth and see myself as a disgusting person. I apologize for putting pretty much my whole life story here. But I'm in a very bad place right now, and I'm hoping to find some sort of way to come to terms with my past. I'm really hurting right now and need to find a way to move forward. I've been into bestiality since I was a teenager. I've lived on a farm when I was a teenager, and my mom often tasked me with taking care of her horses. Fine, I didn't really care that much. I remember one day though, when I started to hit puberty, that I was taking care of the horses like I usually would, and one of them happened to be horny. I don't know why, but this turned me on immensely. I was alone, and now just as horny as she was, so I went for it. I spent a couple hours in her stall, and I came in her several times. By the end I was like, what am I doing? But I really didn't want to stop. I always more eager to take of the horses after that, and I had sex with that horse as often as I could. That was a while ago now, and I didn't really get over that fetish when I started having sex with my own species, but more have put it to the side. I now have a wife who I love dearly, and a beautiful baby boy, but I still think back to that first time occasionally, and it still gives a raging erection. I never told anyone this, not even my wife, but after finding this sub I thought, why not? When I was a very young child I engaged in bestiality and repressed the memories. I apparently repressed these memories, no wonder why, but you know when you're a kid and you ask about sex and your parents say it's a grown-up thing? My parents outright told me when I was 3 to 4 years old, the whole "you do it with someone you love" thing. Apparently I interpreted this incorrectly and I thought that you did it with everyone you love. I had 2 dogs at this point. I'm sure you can imagine what child me did. Several years later, 8 or 9, I did the same thing again. I think my parents caught me. The memory is really blurry at this point, and just thinking about it puts me on the edge of having a panic attack. I can only remember those 2 times, but God knows there were probably more. I knew I was a messed up kid, but I never thought I would have done something so absolutely terrible. You'd think after nearly 2 decades I'd have remembered. It's just so fucked up, and I don't know. I just imagined I was better than that, I guess. I don't think I understood what I was doing at the time, but it still haunts me. Yeah, this is a real tough one. TW, bestiality. Don't know where to start this. I'm a 25-year-old dude, and I've been really struggling this past week. I started seeing a therapist but only have the money to go once a month. I'm seeing him tomorrow, thank God. I had a stressful point in my life recently which was completely unrelated and to do with work, but it resurfaced something I did when I was a teen, 16, and to put it bluntly, I played with my horse's D*ck for a few seconds. Which I felt horrible about afterwards. I even reached out to an online support chat therapist back then after it happened, and I thought I laid it to rest until recently. I've been talking to my therapist in our last session about it, and he mentioned when we're in that mindset of beating ourselves up about past actions, memories that we're not proud of can tend to get together and gang up on us. Well, that got me thinking about some other things I've done, which are the following. When I was a teen, I think around 15 maybe, I let my dog lick my dick for a second when I was on the toilet. I also felt horrible about this at the time but never really gave much attention to it until now. Also, in the last 5 years I've watched lots of porn, and sometimes I would even end up watching Bestiality. I would say I've watched it around 5 times, but I'm not certain. I'm just so regretful of these horrible things I've done. The porn thing was honestly just because I was curious, and so it sort of escalated into me searching that stuff and being like WTF, but then ended up getting off over it. I went through stages of heavily watching porn and curiosity got the better of me, and I guess I just ended up down that rabbit hole. Afterwards, though, I hated myself for it. The guilt and shame was so awful, and I'd never do any of this shit again. So that's it. I've been spiraling lately. It's like I'm going through an OCD episode or something. I have so much guilt, shame, anxiety, and sadness over these things. I can't stop ruminating over it. What's worse is I have the most amazing partner. She's also a therapist, BTW, who I plan on marrying soon. But I had this burning desire to confess all of this to her. I have thoughts like, does she deserve to know? Would she still be with me if she knew? I feel like I'm keeping it all from her and it needs to get out. It's awful. We tell each other everything, but she knows none of this. Sometimes I think maybe she'd be supportive, but then again this could totally freak her out. I just don't want to feel like I'm keeping it from her anymore though. It's horrible. I'm a very sexual person and have other healthy desires. I also want to make it clear I'm no way inclined to do any of this stuff ever again. I've been reading up, and other people who have had similar experiences seem to have been SA'd as a child. I can't remember if I was or not, but I do remember doing things with my friends at an extremely young age. I'm not sure whether that could be linked to any of this stuff or not. Any advice would be greatly appreciated, and please don't think I'm a creep. I know these actions are honestly disgusting, but I promise I'm really not into that stuff. I'm so remorseful and just want to find a way through this because at the moment things are looking pretty bleak.